Hi there, welcome to the lab. Today I'm going to be having a look at this NJTY T21L digital multimeter. Before I get started, I just wanted to ask that if you find this video to be helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Questions and comments are always welcome. The feedback is appreciated and it helps me figure out where to focus my activity. And in particular, I'm reviewing this meter based on the request of one of the viewers of the channel. We can see from the outside the box is pretty nondescript. The version model number is not labeled here at all, so made for rebranding. A lot of Chinese labeling. But we do know from the outside there that it's a T21L. Now inside the box here we've got a set of probes. We'll feel what those look like. So, I mean, these are more or less your standard kind of PVC probes. The handles here are what I'd call the shorter version handles, and if you've used many of these, you'll know what I mean. There's a sheath or a shroud here at the end. The tips aren't really very sharp at all, but they're a little pointed. And of course, we've got these 90-degree angle connectors to plug in. Also in the box, before we get to the main event here, there is a spare set of fuses, or a spare set of fuses for the 0.6 amp fuse. There's probably a 10 amp fuse in there as well, but they didn't give a spare one of those. Maybe it's inside. There's a K-type thermocouple. The thermocouple itself is somewhere in here. There it is, right at the end. Okay. There's a quality control card, and we could use Google Translate on that if we were curious. And there is a manual that is all in Chinese. So I'll definitely need to use Google Translate on that. Now this is referred to as, I guess, an LCR meter because aside from the regular measurements, we'll have to cut this open. We've got inductance here, but we do have all of the other common measurements here. So we've got AC and DC voltage, AC and DC current, temperature. On this little guy, you can see we've got capacitance and diode check, resistance, continuity. So it has all of the common multimeter functions, and it also has inductance. So this looks to be magnetic on the back, and good piece of iron there, so that'll stick to any magnetic surface. That's a nice feature, I guess. And I should mention, you might not be able to tell, but this is really quite a small meter compared to most. You can see my hand pretty much covers the whole thing. And if I compare it, for example, for a moment, to another fairly small meter, so this is a Bryman 2257, and you can see that this T21L is even smaller than the Bryman. And the Bryman's got a fantastic reputation for being a small, full-featured multimeter. And I expect the first thing that we'll need to do is get some batteries in here. So let's do that. So I've got the battery compartment opened up here. It takes 3 AAA batteries, and I like to see that there is a brass threaded insert so we don't chew up the plastic. Let's get the batteries in there. One thing to mention is that there's no sort of retention collar on the screw, so the screw will go flying just like that. So make sure you keep an eye on where that screw goes. I've got the batteries in. Now before I close it up, just one thing or two to mention. You see that the fuses are not accessible here with the back panel taken off. And so if you do have to replace the fuse, you'd have to take off the overmold and get into the innards of the unit. Batteries are in. Let's turn it on and have a look at some of the basic functionality. So I've turned it to voltage. One of the things I noticed is it didn't make any beeping sounds. A lot of these meters tend to beep. Oh, no, there we go. Let's try that again. So it only beeps after it warms up. Yeah, so it's got to kind of be powered up before it starts beeping. That's a little interesting. What else do we have here? So there's a backlight, although it's maybe a little bit of an anemic backlight. It doesn't necessarily reach all the way across. And then there is a light there. And that's pretty decent. All right. It's got a hold function. I'm going to expect that most of the viewers know what the hold does. And then there's this func button, which is used to change the operation when you've got a lot of or multiple settings. So for example here, this is DC and AC voltage, and it defaults to the DC voltage setting, if you can see that. And if we press this, it switches to AC voltage. Similarly, over here, this will switch between resistance, capacitance, continuity, and diode check, and back to resistance. So that's what that button does. So not too many buttons, and the operation of those buttons is pretty intuitive. There doesn't appear to be any opportunity to manually range it, but not a big deal because I never use manual ranging these days. And aside from that, there's also not a relative function. So for example, if you wanted to compensate for the effect of some probes, you can't do that. Now, unlike some of the other NJTY meters, the backlight here is sort of controlled by the button or by time. The backlight doesn't really come on and off based on light illumination intensity, which was actually a really cool feature of some of the NJTY meters in the T58 series. Now let's start testing the functionality. We'll have a look at DC volts initially, and there's a little bit of noise, so that's jumping around. When I connect it to the calibrator, 0, perfect, just what we want to see. Set that up to 1 volt. 1 volt exactly, that's actually pretty good. Let's try half a volt. So half a volt, it's off by a digit there, but that's fantastic. Let's try going up to 5 volts. No, now that's off by a few more digits. Let's go up to 10 volts. 10 volts is perfect. 11, perfect. And that's where the calibrator maxes out. So most of the voltage readings are really, really good. Now this is a 6,000 count meter. So let's just go down one more test here. We'll go down to, 7 volts, 6 volts. So you can see it's off by a bit there on 6 volts. And then when we go to 7 volts, as we lose that leading digit, we get 7 volts right on. But overall, pretty good accuracy for DC volts. Now we'll try DC millivolts. So put that into millivolts, switch that. So right now, 0 millivolts, we're seeing a little teeny bit here. So that's a 100th of a millivolt. Let's inject some real voltage in here now. So that's 1 millivolt. off by a teeny bit, 10 millivolts, off by a tiny bit as well, 20, getting a little better now, 19.99, 30, almost dead on, 40, exactly on. And so I think the voltage measurement, or the millivolt measurement, is really good, maybe with a tiny bit of error in the lower values, which is kind of typical. It's much harder to sense at this lower end, but that's still, for 1 millivolt output to show 0.98 is really excellent performance here for millivolts. Now for AC voltage, I've got the Bryman, which I use as a reference to compare against the NJTY, the T21L. It's all hooked up right now. The power's not on. You can see a little bit of ghost voltage, and the readings are pretty much tracking each other. Let's turn the power on. And they're within a tenth of a volt of each other. Pretty stable here, within a tenth of a volt. So that's very good performance and very fast as well. Now we're going to look at milliamps, and the calibrator will output 4 milliamps. We're not connected yet. When I connect it, oh, look at that, 4 milliamps, right on. 8 milliamps, right on. 12, right on once again. I think this maxes out at 24. I mean, that's off by 1/100th of a milliamp here, so that's really fantastic performance on the milliamps. Now, we can switch over to the amp range now, and 24 milliamps should show as 0.24 amps. You can see that's kind of settling in, sometimes 23, 24. So really, even in the amp range, very, very good performance. Very good performance here. Now the calibrator can also, in a sense, we can output values that are smaller than a full milliamp. So 0.2 milliamps is 200 microamps. And so I've put the NJTY into the microamp range. Let's connect that. And look at that, 200 microamps on the calibrator, 200 microamps on the readout here. We can try 150, let's say, microamps. Look at that, 150.1. So very, very good reading there. And let's go up to something a wee bit higher. Let's go to, let's say, 500 microamps. And here we're seeing 500.2. So off by a very, very small amount. I mean, if you think about it, this is 500 microamps. We're down into the nanoamp range here in terms of the amount of error that we're seeing. So that's really, really fantastic. Now for AC current, I've got the Bryman here as a bit of a reference point. They're both into the milliamp range. I've got an AC fan here. I'm going to turn the power on. You can see a bit of a higher current as the fan comes up to speed. And then once the fan settles in, we've got 169.43. We're within a tenth of a milliamp, it seems, between the Bryman and the T21L. So very nice performance here from the NJTY on the AC current as well. Now look at resistance. I've got the calibrator set to output, and it'll start at 20 ohms. The lead's not hooked up yet, so we're showing 0 here, or over range on the meter. When we plug that in, 20.32. So that's a very good reading there for resistance. We'll take that up to 100 ohms, off by 0.3 of an ohm. Let's go to 500, off by 1 ohm, 600, off by 1 ohm, and when we go to 700, once again, now it's switched over to kilo ohms due to the 6,000 counts, and 0.7, 700 ohms. That's really excellent. 1K, 1K dead on. Let's go up to 2K, 2K. I mean, you know, maybe a 1 ohm difference there in 2K. So that's really excellent performance. Now we'll have a look at frequency. The calibrator is outputting a 0.1 kilohertz or 100 hertz signal. The NJTY T21L is in the frequency mode. Let's plug that in. And 99.96, very good. So that's the frequency. Let's take that up to 1 kilohertz. Also very good, off by a small amount. And let's just check what the duty cycle is. So 51.1. The calibrator outputs a 50% duty cycle square wave. 51.1 is pretty good. That doesn't really change based on the frequency. It's always a 50% duty cycle, but you can see I've come to 3 kilohertz now, and that's showing a slightly different duty cycle. Let's go back to frequency. And once again, 3 kilohertz here, we're seeing about 2.998 kilohertz, so off by 2 hertz. Very good performance on frequency measurement, especially when you consider that a lot of meters struggle to actually perform in the frequency measurement space. I like the performance here on the T21L. Now for capacitance, I've got this reference board here, and I'm going to start measuring, and I'll call out the values as I'm going through them. And let's just get this into capacitance mode. There we go. So a little bit of noise right now, but let's connect this. The first one is 100 picofarads. So that's a wee bit high, but it at least tried to measure it. This is 1 nanofarad. That's actually a pretty close reading. This next one is 10 nanofarads. Well, that's a pretty good reading. 100 nanofarads. A wee bit low, but actually a pretty good reading. This is 1,000 nanofarads. So that's a little low. Reference value is below 1,000. That's even lower. And then the final one here, 10 microfarads. Oh, look at that. That's a very good reading. Very good reading compared to the reference. So really good performance in capacitance. Now for diode check, I've got my test box. We're just going to hook these up. So that's a good reading for the diode. That's another good reading. That lights up, lights, lights. And that shows the right thing. So everything works fine for diode check, and all of these diodes lit up. It just doesn't have the beep feature that I like to see, but that seems to be only found on higher end multimeters, where these valid diodes have a little short tone. Now for continuity, I'm going to start here with the stock probes. Wow, that is fantastic, even with the stock probes, because usually these probes are terrible at this tap test. So that's very good. I'm not even going to bother with the gold-plated probes. Looking at temperature now, the calibrator can simulate a K-type thermocouple, so I use that because that'll give me a broader range. Now there must be some sort of an internal sensor in the unit because I'm not connected yet, and we're showing 24 Celsius. It's not quite that warm here. It's closer to 20 Celsius. I've got a thermometer somewhere here in the lab. Yeah, 20 is what the actual ambient temperature is, but perhaps from action inside it's warmed up a little in there. Now let's plug in that. Anything within 2 degrees is fantastic for this. You can see right now they're bang on. Let's go up there. 10, excellent. 20, bang on. 100, fantastic. 200. fantastic. So the performance on the temperature measurement is just fantastic. It is bang on. And of course, I shouldn't forget, we can get a Fahrenheit reading by pressing the function button if we really want to see the Fahrenheit equivalent of that Celsius value. Now looking at non-contact voltage, I've dialed the T21L into NCV here. We're showing EF on the display, and I've got this plug. The hot line is along this edge, and I bring this close to the sensor. This is the non-contact sensor at the top. If I bring this in slowly, so you can see it's starting to sense there. That's a little over a centimeter. So that's nice performance on the non-contact voltage sensing. For inductance, I don't have a reference source, and so I've got a couple of inductors though that I've pulled off of some boards. This one is marked as 472A, so that should be about 4.7 millihenries. We'll measure that in a second. And I've got this one, which is marked as 222, so that should be 2.2 millihenries. So we'll measure each of these and we'll see what we get. So let's start with the smaller one. So that comes in at 2.3 millihenries. So that's pretty close to what we expected for 2.2. And this other one, 4.9 millihenries, which is also pretty close to what we expected at 4.7 millihenries. And so that's inductance. And so assuming that these are typical inductors with typical kind of amounts of variability, those are decent readings for the inductance. Now let's have a look inside the unit. The rubber overmold comes off, and then the 4 screws hold the back on, and that comes off quite easily. The battery connects to the main board through some pressure mount clips, so that makes it easy to take apart. You don't have to worry about any wires strangling or pulling off. Now, what do we have of interest here? Well, the first thing that's of interest certainly is the DMM chip, and I'll put the marking up on the overlay in case you can't read it here. It might be tricky with the lighting. I spent an hour trying to find information about this chip. I couldn't find anything, but maybe you'll have some more luck and can put the information you find in the comments. Aside from that, what do we have in here? We've got the speaker. They haven't taken off the washing protector here. There's the LED for non-contact voltage there, and that's the LED for continuity there. We've got the non-contact voltage sensor here and the light LED with some very long leads there. Then back down towards this end of the board, this is the 600 milliamp fuse on this side, and then on this side we've got the 10 amp fuse, so fused inputs, and we've got a PTC here as well. So good protection of the unit overall. And then this is an EEPROM, which is likely holding the calibration configuration information. And I'll put the model number of that up in the overlay as well so that you can see. And the board is labeled T21L and probably what is a date of manufacture, which is interesting because it's fairly recent. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a fairly basic system because, of course, everything is really housed in this multifunctional control IC. This is a surprisingly good meter. It has excellent accuracy for a meter in this price range, along with a comprehensive set of measurements. Of note, it includes the less common ability to measure inductance. It is a compact unit that fits nicely in the hand, and there is a magnetic hanging attachment included. The big manufacturers often charge as much for their magnetic hanging accessory as this entire meter package costs. There is fused input protection, good responsiveness on continuity with the included probes, and frequency measurement works. There are not many noticeable deficiencies. The backlight, while functional, could be more even. Duty cycle measurement appears to degrade as frequency increases, and the selector dial doesn't beep until the unit is fully powered up. Some people don't like the beeps produced by their test tools, but I generally appreciate the audible feedback. This is a meter that I would be very happy to use and one that is likely to make it into my travel bag. It's compact, it's loaded with functionality, and represents really good value. If you found this video to be helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time.